some winners in the back.
I do too.
that's all announcements. Yeah, yeah. All right, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's part of that one trip to Austin this year. Yeah. A lot goes into that.
At this time, the mayor will call to order the regular city council meeting for 6 p.m. Tuesday, December the 5th, 2023 at City Council Chambers, 201 East Nash Street, Terrell, Texas. We have with us on the dais District 2, Grady Simpson, District 3, Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem, District 4, Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, and I think District 5, Phil Robinson is just running late. Once he gets here, we'll address that into the record. At this time, I would like to ask that Pastor Ryan Irwin with First Baptist Church please come forward to give us invocation. If you would, please remain standing for the pledges.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for today. Thank you for the opportunity we have as a city to come together and plan and meet. Lord, we thank you for all the individuals in front of me that are serving. Thank you for their wisdom and discernment. Lord, we pray that you multiply it just in the days of planning and preparation for the future. Lord, thank you for our city and for the workers. Lord, we're super grateful for them, including our first responders and police and firefighters. Lord, we love you. We thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. All right. Pastor, if you would, please. Pastor Irwin?
Pastor.
Pastor.
Oh.
Don't run off yet. Don't run yet. So we want to thank First Baptist Church and you for everything that you do for our community, and tell you that you have the support of the mayor and the council. And we challenge you, this is our challenge, point, already 150 years, challenge you to continue to keep doing the good work that you're doing within our community. So thank you so much. For the opportunity. We appreciate it. Yes, sir. Thank you. And for the record, we do have Phil Robinson, District 5, with us. Next item on the agenda is the mayor and council community recognition and events. I have quite a few, and I think I'm going to start off with one that is dear to me. On November the 15th, the city of Terrell and the Terrell State Hospital held their first annual co-ed flag football game. The city team, also known as City Slickers, won the game with a score of 31-13. The team's touchdowns were scored by Charleston Miller, Demetria McCullough, Arlie Sansom, Roxanne Abundis, Kaylin Smith, and Micah Skinner played a crucial role in the game by making interceptions. The star quarterbacks who led the team to victory were Bonshay Jackson and Micah Skinner. We also appreciate Derek Hill and C.J. White for providing great coaching and outstanding leadership. The mayor and Mike Sims were there roaring you on, cheering you on from the sideline. And we want to say congratulations. At this time, if you took part in this football game, would you please come forward? Again, congratulations on the win, the Cisco Centennial win, I'll call it. We have Normally we give out cookies. Yeah. So, but again, thank you for playing. Thank you for representing the city in this important game to us, right? And y'all handled yourself well, and so congratulations. And it looked like it was a lot of fun. And if I'd felt better, I would have played a little bit more. So, but anyway, thank y'all so much, and congratulations to each and every one of you. Let's take a picture. Council, would y'all come down and take a picture with them? Yeah. Let's get, no. Y'all, yeah. We're gonna fill in. Can you get everybody? Okay, here we go.
Okay, ready? Here we go.
So if y'all would grab a cake.
And grab a cake as you leave.
Does anybody want to say anything? Oh, okay. So this will be displayed proudly at City Hall.
All right, all right.
We love football.
Yeah, it was.
Red velvet.
Dang,
Once again, most of her life,
my goodness, man.
one thing after another.
Yeah. I need to combine cooter with the egg.
Please don't.
All right. As we continue with our mayor and council recognitions, I have several. And normally this might be handled by our Allison Walker a little bit in a report, but she is out temporarily. But we also want to celebrate the fact that the Terrell Tigers 10 and under football team won the state championship and will be competing in the national tournament in Florida on December the 14th of 2023, representing the state of Texas and Terrell, Texas. So that's a big win for those kids, and we keep them in our prayers and hope that they do well in Florida. Also, the Terrell 150 history exhibit and reception will be held this Friday, December the 8th, from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Lyric at 115 Westmore Avenue. So if you're out and about, please come by, drop by, and say hello. Following the reception, we will have the Terrell Christmas tree lighting event that will begin at 6 p.m. at the empty lot on Rockwall and Moore Avenue. Again, that is all Friday, December the 8th. The Terrell Christmas Parade is scheduled the following day, which will be Saturday, December the 9th, and it will begin at 10 a.m. at Memorial Stadium for the council. If you are scheduled to ride through the parade, if you would be at the north end of the football stadium by 8:45, 9 o'clock, because that's when they shut the roads, start shutting the roads down. Following the Christmas parade, there'll be a Holly Jolly downtown party scheduled for December the 9th. It'll go from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the empty lot on Rockwall and Moore Avenue. They'll have events, and I think Santa will be there to take pictures with the kids. And then lastly, I want to congratulate our city manager, Mr. Sims, Mike Sims. It was announced today by the International City Managers Association that Mr. Sims has been recommended by the ICMA Credentialing Advisory Board to receive ICMA Credentialed Manager Honors in January of 2024. The ICMA Credentialed Manager designation requires a combination of education and experience, adherence to high standards of integrity, and an assessed commitment to lifelong learning and professional development. This is the highest level of professional certification available in the city management profession. So congratulations, Mr. Sims, and thank you. Does anyone else have any recognitions or events that are coming up? None? Okay. All right, next on the agenda is, are here remarks from visitors? Do we have something? Okay, yes.
Sorry, you threw me off there. I would really like to take a moment to welcome Mark Mills to the organization officially. We kind of introduced him last night at our joint meeting with the school district and the Paddock Board and the Terrell Economic Development Corporation. Mark Mills is our new assistant city manager, and having had no assistant city manager for the last 5 years, I am absolutely thrilled that Mark is joining us, and I really appreciate that. Mark comes from us most recently being the Director of Finance for North Richland Hills. Before that, he was the Budget Director for North Richland Hills. Before that, he was a series of other cities and just has an outstanding resume for us. And he's hit the ground running and really doing a great job already. But this is his first official meeting here in the council chambers. So Mark, welcome aboard, and you're a real blessing to have you here. And so we thank you for choosing us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, welcome, Mark. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes. This is a discussion item. It's discussed and considered. Oh. Do we have any? Yeah, didn't I ask? Oh, okay. Did I not ask that earlier? Okay.
Well, it's okay.
Do we have remarks from visitors? And that's no. Okay.
We don't.
All right.
Good.
You know, the city secretary has the right to interrupt the mayor. And I've told her time and time again, if she sees me do something wrong, to correct me. So thank you, Don. Next on the item, on the agenda is discuss and consider minutes from the regular city council meeting of November the 14th of 2023. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes from regular city council meeting on November 14th as presented.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Phil Robinson, District 5, to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting on November the 14th of 2023 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 5.1, discuss and consider civil service commission appointments and reappointments. This will be handled by our City Secretary, Don Stahl.
Mayor and Council, the roster for the Civil Service Board is in your packet. We have 2 open positions on that board that need to be filled, and this board falls under the oversight of Grady Simpson.
Councilman Simpson, are you prepared to make a recommendation?
Yes, Mayor. Kenneth Baker has already been approved. The other 2 candidates is G. Garcia and R. Gutierrez, 2 well-qualified members that I approve.
Okay.
Yes, that's a motion.
So there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, to approve those mentioned as members of the board for the Civil Service Commission. Is there any further discussion?
Just
Hearing none?
like to note that we do have one of the applicants and our appointees now, Rosette Gutierrez, in the room, and also glad to hear that Greg will be serving as well.
Awesome.
All right. So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 5.2, discuss the City Facilities Naming Committee and consider appointments to the committee. This will be handled by Assistant City Manager Mark Mills.
Mayor, Council, good evening. This evening, I'm going to provide a concise history and an overview of the Facilities Naming Committee, as well as talk a little bit about the City Council's charge to the Naming Committee. At this meeting, there is one action item, which is to discuss the committee and consider appointments. If there are still remaining vacancies on the committee, we'll bring an item back on December the 12th to provide council another opportunity to name individuals to the committee. In addition, on December the 12th, we'll talk further about the City Council's charge to that committee. A brief history: in June 2019, City Council passed a resolution that established a policy for the naming and renaming of city facilities, streets, and parklands. In January of 2018, Council adopted the comprehensive plan. In February of 2021, Council adopted Resolution 1011, which established and assigned the responsibilities to the City Facilities Naming Committee and placed a temporary hold on honorary names as well as naming activities until the newly created committee could establish revised procedures and present those to Council. In October of '23, Resolution 2106 was passed, which modified the Facilities Naming Committee composition, taking it from a 5-member committee to a 9-member committee, clarified a residency requirement, clarified the officers to include not just a chair but also a vice chair, established their duties, as well as define a quorum for that committee. As I mentioned, that last resolution changed the committee makeup to go from 5 members to 9 members. The 9 members are appointed for 1-year terms. 2 members are appointed by each council member from District 2 to District 5, and then 1 member is appointed by the mayor. Currently, there are 3 appointees to the naming committee. These are Estella Johnson, Jerry Burr, and Steve Huey. This evening, at the conclusion of my presentation, we are going to ask council if they have additional nominees for appointment. And again, if not, there'll be another opportunity for you on the 12th of December. Again, this evening, asking you for nominations, and on the 12th, again, asking you for nominations if there's still vacancies, as well as considering your charge to the City Facility Naming Committee. As it stands now, the charge to the City Naming Committee would include the appointment of a chair and a vice chair. They would do that at their first meeting. They would then review and make modification recommendations to the City Council for the policy for naming and renaming city facilities, streets, parklands, and the associated processes with those. Once those modifications are recommended to council and council approves, the committee will then be able to begin naming facilities. They'll consider the initial list of facilities eligible for renaming as provided by the city council, and that'll be what we talk about on a little bit this evening, but mainly on the 12th. To give you an idea of some of the facilities that are available for naming, again, this is not a comprehensive list. This is just examples. You can choose from these lists or other ideas that you may have. But what we're presenting this evening is West University Street from South Park Street to Adelaide. To consider renaming West University, the committee would then be charged to consider and evaluate whether the renaming is appropriate, if council would desire to assign that to the committee. What I'm told is referred to as the No Name Road, which is Bethlehem Street to New Hope Street, south of the city-maintained graveyard. Ben Gill Park, there are various facilities at the park, including an interior street, youth football field, press box, softball complex and fields, the soccer complex and the associated fields, tennis courts, volleyball courts, swimming pool, and a pavilion and picnic area. Arley White Park, various facilities include basketball court, pavilion, picnic area, walking trail. Breezy Hill Park, trail, softball, baseball fields, pavilion, picnic areas. Again, not an all-encompassing list, not intended to be comprehensive, but wanted to provide examples. Again, this evening, the action that we are requesting is for council to make any nominations that they may have and appoint those individuals to the board. We'll come back on the 12th if there are vacancies and do the same. And then we will consider those facilities that council would like to put on a short list for the committee to begin naming. If council were to desire, staff's recommendation would be a short list of 5-10 facilities to give the committee something to start with, and not an overwhelming list of 30-40 items. I'm available for any questions council may have.
Okay. In our park system, I noticed you had Breezy Hill. So we have an association.
Yes, sir.
That is there. So I'm assuming that this naming committee would work with the Breezy Hill organization to move forward with any naming there.
So when I talked about the modification of the policy and put associated processes at the end of that, what I'm intending by that is that committee would then address processes by which we are involving stakeholders. Individuals that contributed to the park associations, the park board, if it's a park. So the committee will be responsible for working with me and coming up with recommendations to council on how we would handle involving the stakeholders with those individual parks.
Excellent, wonderful. I think that's important to do it, to follow that procedure as we move forward with this naming committee. Does anybody have any questions or comments for our Assistant City Manager?
Mr. Mills, I just want to say that I really like the way you've broken this out here with the action items for today and then future action items. The approach you've given tonight is top-notch, so I appreciate that.
I'll try to continue that.
And for the mayor, my nominee, I'll reach out to you this week and get that to you, and so that we can reach out to them and see if there's interest. And I would suggest that the council who hasn't already put your nominations forward, if you'll just reach out to the assistant city manager, give him those names, we make the contact, and then we'll be ready to vote at our next meeting, okay?
Very good.
Cool, thank you. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing and city council actions. This is a 6.1, conduct a public hearing to receive comments regarding the administrative plan to establish policies for the Housing Choice Voucher Program consistent with HUD regulations and local goals and objectives contained in the agency plan for the Terrell Housing Agency. This is going to be handled by our housing director, Denise Simon. And football player also, flag football player. She wears many hats. 22, that's my lucky number, man.
Good evening, how y'all doing?
Doing great. Congratulations again.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so, public hearing, we opened up, comments for the admin plan, the beginning of November, which ended on November the 29th. We did not receive any comments from that. And I guess I'm here today to see if any of the council members have any changes, suggestions, or recommendations regarding the plan that has been presented to you.
Okay, so this is a public hearing, so what we'll do is open up the public hearing, hear any comments, and then have you come back, and then at that point, the council would engage you, okay? Is that all right? All right, so at this time, we will open the public hearing to receive comments regarding the administrative plan to establish policies for the Housing Choice Voucher Program consistent with HUD. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this matter? Okay, yes, ma'am. Okay.
Is there any kind of home ownership association set in place for the area that I live in? Because, it's noisy over
So,
there.
ma'am, so this is a public hearing, so
Okay.
what we're doing today is
Okay.
hearing comments from you. So
Okay.
within your comments, ask those questions, and then once Denise comes up, we'll be able to answer them.
Okay, my question for you is why there isn't any home ownership association in place for the area that I live in? That's all. That's it.
Would you give us your name and address, please?
Brenda Williams. I live in 302 Fraser Street, Boom and Fraser.
Okay. Thank you for your comments, and we appreciate that.
God bless.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? All right, at this time, we will close the public hearing and move on to item 6.2. This is discuss and consider resolution number 2110, resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, approving the administrative plan to establish policies for the Housing Choice Voucher Program consistent with HUD regulations and local goals and objectives contained in the agency plan for the Terrell Housing Agency. Denise, if you would please come forward again. Oh, you dropped a sheet. So, if you would like to address the council with anything, have we been brought up to speed? Everybody comfortable with or know about the resolution 2110? Any changes that have been made?
I do have a couple of clarifications. Denise, I saw there were some sections, and I'm trying to navigate. I think it's to page 170, and I think I may have found an answer here for my question. Because there are some sections around, some sections that specify individuals who have been part of domestic violence, as an example, or are in a shelter as an example, and maybe those individuals are seeking a home, whether they're in a shelter already or not quite there, they're seeking for a home. So I'm trying to scroll down to the area that lists our local preferences and wondered if, was trying to verify if victims of domestic violence were included in those local preferences that we updated. And if staff or Denise, if you can guide me to the page.
We'll let Denise find that page reference for you, but just kind of going backwards, the update provides that that's one of the classifications of folks that do get preference in the scoring system. It's kind of a complicated scoring system that includes some of the federal issues and ways that we have to administer it according to federal rule. But one of the things we're allowed to do is to ask the question about whether or not somebody's a victim of domestic violence. And Denise created for us a specific way to determine whether or not someone is qualifying, right? They actually have to have worked through a process and have a qualifying organization. So go ahead, Denise.
In Chapter 4 on page 414, I'm not sure what the number is on the screen, but this is section 43C, selection method, and then right under that is the local preferences. Page 184. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the second item there is victims of domestic violence, and so they will receive a preference when the waiting list is open for them to actually apply. There are two agencies here, Celebrate Forever Families and the Genesis Center of North Texas. Those are the two agencies that can provide verification that the women are actually in a domestic violence situation or they're actually receiving services from that agency. And so we had to have some organization that could justify the preference that is being made at the time of the application. So they are included in that preference.
What about an example of, let's say that we have someone in our own community and there's a call made to the police department, or let's say that they go to the hospital and somewhere in their medical records or in our police records, there's a notation of domestic violence having occurred. Could either of those supporting documents also be included?
Well, it can be included, but the way this admin plan is written is that those individuals, I'm assuming, have been referred to agencies to receive services. So hopefully when they encounter or the police encounters them, that they're referring them to those agencies. And so those agencies will be able to provide that information that we need for the preference.
And I hear what you're saying, and I know we have like a waiting period before we open up for the lottery system for applicants, and I saw provisions that would allow us to, let's say a home becomes vacant, and there are already folks on the waiting list, or maybe there's an opportunity for someone that is having to leave their home, and we just happen to have a vacancy that opens up. Could we not write the policy in a way that we could review that individual situation and potentially place them in a home without having to go into a shelter? Is there any reason why we would only take individuals that are at a shelter?
Well, it's not just individuals that are in a shelter. They may not actually be in the shelter. They may be just receiving services from the Battered Women's Shelters nonprofit agency. So they don't have to actually be at the shelter. My experience with talking to the individuals that run these two organizations is that a lot of the women are there for so many months before they even will allow them to transition to housing. And so they want to provide those supportive services for them before they're actually maybe ready to transition. So in the conversations that I've had, what they're doing is they're going ahead and getting them on the list. and it may be 2 years or 18 months or whatever it is before they come up. But if they haven't completed the program that they currently are in, where they're actually living in the facility, then they have to wait. I got a call to see if one of the ladies had come up on another housing agency's waiting list. And I said, well, contact that agency and see if they'll wait and just keep that person on the waiting list until their time was up so that they could not miss out on that opportunity for their voucher. And so we would definitely do that if that was the case.
Right. In talking to the agencies, Celebrate Forever Families and Genesis Center of North Texas, did they happen to mention whether they have a wait list to get into those facilities?
I didn't discuss whether they had a waiting list at the current time. No, I did not. But I would assume that there's situations where they do have a waiting list. They have more demand than they have available resources.
Just as a point of clarification on this, if you have a person who has the extreme acute, they need to be out of their house immediately, Genesis and Celebrate would both help them get placed in a location that is available if they don't have a place, right? So if they happen to have space with Celebrate or with Genesis, they'd get them in. If they don't, they do a lot of work to place people with hey, you got to be out of your house right now because it's not safe. And so therefore, they have a network of people who they can work with to get them out. The housing voucher program, I'll just be honest with you, is a really bad match for moving quickly because it's not set up under federal law to allow us to move it quickly. So the pipeline that Denise has established for us is to say, okay, because we know that Celebrate and Genesis get people on a methodical program to get them set up and straight and on a really good solid foundation so they don't go back to an abuser, that's where the match is more easy to make, right? And so, you know, I really appreciate the acute element. That's something that we have to deal with. On the other hand, trying to match them with a federal process, that's not an easy match to make, right? That's a mismatch.
I hear
right?
what you're
Yeah.
saying about kind of that fast process that someone may need who's needing to find a different home versus someone who's in a we'll call it transitional living situation. Let's say that we have someone that is at Genesis or Genesis here or Genesis and Celebrate Recovery don't have any beds open for those individuals, and they get referred to a facility in Dallas, but their home was here, and they want to be able to return here because they have maybe a support network. In the way that our administrative plan is set up, or our application, is there somewhere where they would be able to list or reference that they lived in Terrell for the last 10, 15, 5 years, and would that help qualify them to?
One of the preferences is residency. So if they can prove that they were living in Terrell, or they're working in Terrell, or they're going to school, then they're going to get the maximum points, so that we're focusing on our community first. So regardless of however many preferences they have, the way it's set up, if you see the residency is going to get 2,000 points over anything else. So they're going to be at the top of the list regardless. So they would get those extra points there.
And that would be the same for what I heard you say, Denise, if we did have someone that was elderly and had to go into a facility but was ready to return and had a support network here, then that residency preference would allot them additional points.
Yes.
So, Denise, just to be clear, what we're doing here on this resolution 2110 is getting the city consistent with federal law as it exists today and with our program as it exists today. And then all of the internal stuff, if we wanted to review it with you, that would be something separate at a different time. Right? Okay, all right.
Can you just give me a brief summary of what changes we had to make to be in compliance? doesn't have to be, exact or?
Well, one of the major changes that you'll see in the admin plan is the area that we actually cover. Currently, we only provide rental assistance in the city limits of Terrell. The local government code indicates, chapter 392 indicates that we should actually be going out 5 miles from the city limits. So now if you'll approve the plan, we're gonna have now 9 zip codes that we're gonna be going into. However, we cannot go into another municipality's city limits, but we can go anywhere in the county outside of those particular city limits. So that is going to expand hopefully the available units that we have, and that gives the families an opportunity to go somewhere else outside of just the city limits of Terrell, because if there's nothing available, they can go to some other areas. The other area was the local preferences and making sure that that was clarified there. And then we have another change that's coming, but we didn't put it in here. The income chapter is completely going to change. Well, right now, that's not before you, so those are kind of some of the major changes that we have.
Thank you.
And also for the area that we're going to be expanding into, if there's someone that's encroached upon our area, they have to get out, right?
Well, the way the Texas local code reads is if a housing authority comes into a city limit, they're supposed to port those vouchers to us. That means we have to administer those vouchers. And I've been in conversation with the other housing authorities that are in Terrell, so they are aware that we are coming to them. And so with the support of the regional office in Fort Worth, we will be addressing those issues, because we've identified how many are actually here. So we'll be working on it.
Is that a huge number?
No, it's not. It may be 20 at the most, but it's a small number. But
So,
we'll be working with HUD on that.
Just for clarity on the map, that's going to be on agenda item page 104. And on agenda item page 104, what you're going to see there is that the city limits is shown in a yellow outline. And then the rule, which, as Denise indicates, it gets points for being a confusing rule, but we didn't write it, it's state law, is the yellow area is our core city limits, okay? And then the rule is we are allowed to provide, or we are required to provide, the voucher can be used by a rental unit within that red boundary, okay? That red boundary is 5 miles away from the city limit, with the exception of we cannot use the voucher in an area that's orange, meaning it's in somebody else's city limits, okay? So we will be able to take folks who are in need of the voucher assistance, and instead of saying, well, there's no voucher eligible property available today in strictly the city limits, if there happens to be a voucher eligible property within the 5 mile radius, the red line, but not in the orange zones, then the voucher recipient would be free to choose a rental unit within that larger geographic area. So it's going to be a better standard of service for our voucher recipient, because right now sometimes our voucher recipients are having a hard time working with Denise to find an eligible household to use the voucher within our own city limits. So this gives us a flexibility, and it provides us to be compliant with state law. So that's the reason for this update. And I'd call that the most major change in the entire packet, because it changes the geographic approach that Denise is going to be able to use to serve these families.
And this is pretty standard going, is this just a new change, the 5 mile radius, or is this something new, or?
It's
something
not
we
new.
implement?
It was just that as a result of a HUD review that we had back in, I think, April, it was brought to our attention. And so that's why we're here today to discuss making the change to be in compliance.
Based on your expertise and your history with housing, is this 5 mile radius sufficient, you think, or do we need to, or is it any cities that do more based on your, and it's not against federal or funding standards or whatever?
Well, I think this is a start for us at this point, so we'll work with what we have here. There are other housing authorities that cover multiple counties. And so if you think about Dallas, Mesquite, Garland, Dallas County, even Grand Prairie and Arlington, they're overlapping. So they're going into each other's area, but if they follow the code from the state, they wouldn't be doing that. So, for example, the city of Arlington, the Housing Authority has a cooperative agreement that says Grand Prairie cannot come into their area and they won't go into Grand Prairie's. If somebody wants to live in Arlington from Grand Prairie, then they will port them there, and that's the way it's supposed to be. But some housing authorities aren't in compliance with that.
I think anything that gives our families more opportunity for affordable housing or workforce housing, I support that. So if this is a start, I accept your report and your expertise, and I'll support that. So I think this is necessary, and thank you for that.
Does anybody else have any comments for Denise? All right, thank you, Denise. Thank you. So this is a discuss and consider resolution number 2110.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight resolution number 2110, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, approving the administrative plan to establish policies for the Housing Choice Voucher Program consistent with HUD regulations and local goals and objectives contained in the agency's plan for the Terrell Housing Authority.
Is there a motion on resolution 2110?
Motion to approve resolution number 2110.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Phil Robinson, District 5, a second from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, District 4, to approve Resolution 2110 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous vote of those present. At this time, the mayor would like to request, if there's no exceptions, to move our executive session up to now. If there's no exceptions, are there any exceptions? All right, at this time, we will adjourn into executive session in accordance with Section 551 of the Texas Government Code to discuss the following. Section 551.072, deliberations regarding real property. Section 551.074, personnel matters. Section 551.087, deliberations regarding economic development negotiations. We are now in executive session. We will continue our regular city council meeting in just a few moments.
I don't think we should be allowing 40-foot lots in these type of developments. That's my concern. It's always been my concern. We got to be consistent. We're gonna allow it here, we need to allow it other places. So that's just it. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right when we do that. Because when you have this vast amount of land, if I tell this developer to make every lot 72.4 feet, 72 feet, 3 inches, they can do that. But it's hard sometimes when you have neighbors on each side and people are building and you don't have this vast amount of land. And that's just, it's always been a concern. And I always appreciated Councilman Royce because he understood. If we're setting the standards, we need to make everybody follow these standards. If we're gonna have some of these standards minimized, we need to allow that everywhere. And that's just my concern.
Good. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mark. So this is ordinance number 2952. Is there a motion? Again, this was a P&Z 7-0 unanimous vote to approve, right? Is there a motion on ordinance number 2952?
Yes, Mayor, motion to approve ordinance number 2952.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem, District 3, to approve ordinance number 2952 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Nay.
Any opposed? The motion carries 3-1. Next item on the agenda is 6.5, conduct a public hearing to receive comments regarding the creation of the Arboretum Estates Public Improvement District Number 6 within the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the city of Terrell. This is going to be handled by Mike Sims.
So Mayor and Council, the next two items are part of kind of this same package here. This was a subset of the 1,100 acres. And so now we're looking at a capital public improvement district, which is over only 792 of the acres. So this is the residential acres, and this is the engine that assists in moving forward with the capital public improvement district. Remember, it's a negotiated annexation. And as part of that, we are allowing them to have a public improvement district inside the city limits. It also has a tax increment refinance zone. They work together, and this is embedded in the development agreement. So this is a consistent with development agreement, capital improvement, and public improvement district. So what's the decision today? The decision today is that this is a little bit of an oddball public hearing where what we're doing is we're really only looking at a resolution that says, do you want to have a public hearing about this in January? So there'll be a January 9th public hearing to take a deeper look at it and to have opportunity for public comment on it and a opportunity for the public improvement district to be in the newspaper and go through it. But again, it's voluntary by the current owner. It is something that is 100% consistent with the development agreement that came forward through the annexation process, and be happy to answer any questions about it after the public hearing, sir.
Okay. At this time, we will conduct a public hearing to receive comments regarding the creation of the Arboretum Estates Public Improvement District Number 6. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on behalf of this matter? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. Move on to item 6.6. Greg?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight resolution number 2122, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, accepting a petition concerning the creation of a public improvement district, finding the petition to be compliant with applicable laws, approving and authorizing the mailing and publication of notice of a public hearing regarding the possible creation of a public improvement district, and resolving other matters in connection therewith.
Okay.
So, Mayor and Council, again, the whole idea here is that you want to tell the public with lots of notice that a public improvement district is being formed. This will have a total borrowing capacity around $225 million. That'll give you a sense of the scale of the roads, water, sewer, drainage, everything else that's a public improvement, the park elements of it, all of that has a total cost. We include that estimate in the paperwork to make sure it's clear to the public. It'll get noticed out to the newspaper, and there'll be a public hearing on January 9th. Decision today is simply to set the public hearing for January 9th.
All right, so again, this is just to set the public hearing, but if your concern is traffic concerns or how things are going to be paid and they're going to be done in an appropriate way, this is the funding mechanism that will allow and address all of that, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So are we good with setting January 9th as the date for the public hearing, is our question. The resolution, is there a number on this?
2122, Mr.
All right,
Mayor.
so before we move forward, are y'all's, is it blurry to y'all on your computer? Is it just, are my sugars wrong? You see mine?
You okay, Mayor?
I know, that's what I'm trying to find out. Is it just me? Does that blurry, look blurry to you?
That's blurry.
I thought so.
Yeah, huh?
Mine's
Yeah.
a
This-
little better
This side's
right there.
clear,
Yeah,
this
no.
side's
Oh, okay,
blurry.
all right.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I needed for the chief to come up here and work on, all right. Sorry. Resolution what?
2122, Mr. Mayor.
2122.
Motion to approve Resolution 2122.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I second.
We have a motion from Phil Robinson, District 5, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to approve Resolution 2122 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 6.7.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, item 6.7 is to conduct a public hearing to receive comments regarding the creation of the Arboretum Estates Maintenance Public Improvement District Number 7 within the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the city of Terrell.
All right, again, this is a public hearing. We will open the public hearing to receive comments regarding the creation of the Arboretum Estates Maintenance Public Improvement District Number 7. Is there anyone to speak on behalf of this item? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. We'll move on to item 6.8.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight Resolution Number 2121, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, accepting a petition concerning the creation of a public improvement district, finding the petition to be compliant with the applicable laws, approving and authorizing the mailing and publication of notice of a public hearing regarding the possible creation of a public improvement district, and resolving other matters in connection therewith.
All right, Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, this is the Public Improvement District, also for 792 acres, also part of that original 1,100 acres we talked about in the zoning item. In this particular area, you've got the allowance for maintenance. And so obviously, when you build new drainage structures, new land areas, new landscaping buffers, all that sort of thing, you want a engine that will provide for mowing and cleaning up drainage corridors. This also includes funding for annual maintenance of a flock camera system, so that's an important public safety issue. It provides for a tax rate within that 792 acres that pays for those additional amenities. And again, this is just the step of saying, hey, can we publish in the newspaper a public hearing for January 9th and do a public hearing on January 9th in order to enact this public improvement district?
Okay. Any questions? Again, this is just a funding. What's the resolution number on this one?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's Resolution Number 2121.
2121. So we're going back. Wasn't the last one 2122?
Yes, sir, it was.
Okay, all right.
Again, you're on your toes.
I know. Somebody got them out of order. Let's, is there a motion on Resolution 2121?
Yes, Mayor, motion to approve resolution number 2121.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
I have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, District 4, to approve Resolution 2121 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 7.1, receive City of Terrell Fire Station Design Update. This will be handled by Raylan Smith, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
So as promised, we said that we would bring you an update to Fire Station Number 3. So I have with us tonight representatives from WRA, who is your architect, as well as Core Construction. and Shane Lucroy will kind of walk you through our last 30 or 60 days, and we'll move forward.
Thank you. Is the chief first, or? Nope. Okay, gotcha. This is WRA.
Yes, sir. Mayor and council, good evening. You certainly will hear from the chief, as well as Gary with Core Construction. We appreciate the incremental and phased approach to this. We have been working very diligently for about 2 months on this since we were approved. We've met about 12 times. That's a little more than once a week. So the access that this team has been given and the approach of a slow incremental gathering of information is what we call the pre-design phase. So tonight we're here to talk about pre-design. You won't see final renderings or anything yet. We feel this approach is sorry, thank you, Raylan. Yeah, just a quick introduction to the team. You're going to hear from the three of us tonight, but there's a good amount of firepower behind this team. We've spoken with the building officials, the fire marshal, engineering teams, city management, fire leadership, even down in the battalion level. We have toured stations around the Metroplex. So our goals for the pre-design phase are to establish a consensus on what we're building, what we're drawing. Architects just starting to draw, saying, here's your pretty station. That's not the approach that we're trying for. We're trying to design a Terrell-sized fire station that meets the very specific needs of the city of Terrell. Not Mesquite, not Plano, not McLennan Chisholm. So we certainly want to give that approach tonight. We call it the pre-design, but certainly a sketch. We want to make sure the council, mayor, are familiar with where this is happening. We have a very nice site that was teed up for our design team right off the bat, Apache Trail and Rexel Court. You'll see the slide here. We have a 3-bay station. You'll see the 3 arrows coming from a large 30,000-foot level. We want public parking. We want a safe and secure firefighter area. We want ample access for apparatus to leave. We certainly evaluated the station facing Apache Trail. There's just not quite enough space to turn this station 90 degrees. We've certainly worked with the fire department and teams on making sure that the plan we're currently presenting maintains high level of ISO rating, firefighter engagement, staff retention. It's a safe, durable facility for the next 50 years that meets the needs of today. So you'll see a through circulation lane that allows them to get out on Apache and Rexel if needed from a staff perspective. You'll see a fenced-in area kind of in the back of the station. You'll see the appropriate areas for generators, transformers, and certainly designing this to be future expandable and not putting generators, utilities, a lot of parking that you're going to have to redo there. So I certainly want to make this collaborative. If at any point you have questions on this, please let us know.
So I'm assuming that in this part of your draft, all considerations was given to take advantage of every square foot of this piece of property. In other words, that's why we don't see it at an angle or facing Apache Trail, that when all factors were considered, this was the best placement for the facility and the size for the facility?
Absolutely. You'll see the future expansion. The station would technically fit if it faced Apache Trail. It would not have room for expansion if it faced Apache Trail. Also, working with the engineering department and the topography, you'll see the 30-foot fire lane to the south doesn't go all the way to the property line. Well, that last little sliver is for water retention. We certainly don't want to release more water to the neighboring property than is naturally there. We want a dumpster enclosure that's accessible and outside the secure area. So absolutely.
So there's this is, I guess, gated You need a key to enter this piece of property?
The fire apparatus and fire trucks would most likely have kind of a radio fob system to where they wouldn't have to get out or try to run into to something manual.
All right, cool.
But yes, absolutely.
Are there cameras anywhere on this piece of property? I mean, have y'all gotten to that point?
We haven't got to that point. There's certainly, you'll see in the coming slides, we do have kind of more written information, certainly in the subsequent schematic design development. We will place each one of those cameras, but cameras are accounted for in the budget.
Anybody have any questions at this point?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I work in a fire station that was built by Core Construction.
Yeah.
I have some experience with that. Is this a pull-through bay or is this a back-end situation?
This is a pull-through bay.
Pull-through?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you've got the living quarters, and where would the kitchen be located? In the sitting area, sort of?
Most likely. We've had the discussions. You see the dashed area in the back with this thin dash line. The day room and kitchen would be right off of that. And then we're going to try to keep the actual dorm bunk rooms on that far north side on Apache for separation.
Okay. And are we going to have the decontamination area between the apparatus bay and the living area?
Absolutely. You'll see some of the goals. I didn't want to steal Chief LaCroix's thunder here. Some of the goals, in addition to that, certainly firefighter safety. That's protection from carcinogens from you come in from an active event. You want an airlock chamber to where that air does not go from the bays to the living quarters. Even down to the psychology of sleep health, of making sure that sleeping quarters, you wake up during an event, but certainly somebody dropping a dish or lifting weights, we want to be respectful of that. So.
And the future expansion area there, is that, what is the intention actually there? What might that be in the future?
That could be a future EMS bay. Should the city take that on? That could be, I would certainly let Chief LaCoy, if you had any.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the thought process is, that could be, if we bring ambulances into the station, that would be an area that we could put them in.
Okay.
And whatever the other needs may be, 20, 30 years down the road, we just want to make sure that we, consider and in our design phase that we have the ability to, expand the structure.
And this is going to house how many firefighters?
This will house, right now, it'll be housing the battalion chief, and it'll be housing an engine company.
Okay, and the chief's driver, or just the?
Yeah, so 6.
The 6 total across 3 shifts?
Yes.
Okay.
But also, it also will house our reserve equipment.
Okay.
That we have to have areas in which, to keep it in now.
Okay, so 18 total firemen. I don't know if are we going to, I guess, discuss the staffing piece of this as well, I guess, or?
It's just construction.
Yeah.
Well, my concern is I do think, just to kind of make sure it's on the radar, we need to make sure that we have milestones in place to make sure that when this goes live, that we're ready to staff it up and get it up and running. I've heard kind of through the grapevine that the SAFER grant might not have worked out for us. So I just want to make sure we have a plan in place to make sure that we're going to be staffed up in time for this to be deployed, because there'd be no worse situation than getting this fire station built and ready to go, and day one it's like there's no one to work there.
Well, I agree.
It's sitting there. Okay.
Yeah. Staffing side isn't today's conversation, but the short answer is yes, and we'll have more conversations about various staffing plans that we've got.
Yeah.
The next couple of PowerPoint slides actually have a lot more detail in them, so maybe if we flip through some of that might help council.
Absolutely. We appreciate it. There is a schedule slide, that you'll get to graphically see. We're certainly going to try to time that. So we want to also talk about cost tonight. Part of the pre-design phase is an incremental approach moving forward of setting a budget. It's a polishing process of making sure we're aligned with a range. We've turned the types of spaces needed in the station, some of the types of equipment, special air purification systems into a budget. So this slide, it just shows the unfortunate inflation that the construction industry has seen in about the last 2 to 3 years. We certainly are trying to stretch every dollar and be cognizant of public funds, but just want to kind of give a little bit of an overview of some of the inflation that we've seen the last several years across the construction industry. You'll see an almost doubling from 2021. I haven't found a magic bullet to that. We've worked to try to design an economical yet durable station. So we just want to present that tonight and make sure we're all comfortable in this incremental phase moving forward. We welcome any questions on that. We've got a second slide here. This is the benefit of having core construction on early. You're not sitting here listening to an architect say, here's your pretty building, here's what I think it's going to cost. My last several projects have cost this. That's how we cost estimate. Contractors, construction managers this is what they do. So having their input in early allows for us to build a narrative. So we've gathered the general requirements that we feel like are hard and fast needs for the station. And this is a breakdown of kind of where a lot of that money is going. Also, with the CM agent process, you have 100% transparency in this, to where if we designed it and you put it out to bid, you get one number from a contractor. You will see every single one of these numbers reflected in every estimate that they give. And also on bid day, you'll see if we were on the money on the electrical, the $1 million for electrical or the concrete, you'll certainly get to see that and then make decisions accordingly. It's more information for you to be able to accept alternates, approve certain bids. And we certainly also, from project management standpoint, want to manage your entire budget, not just get up here and say, here's what your brick and mortar are going to cost. So you're seeing from day one allowances, market risk, unforeseen conditions. We work on this side of the Metroplex, the groundwater for pier casings, the cell booster radios. I know I could probably attest the cell phone service in this building is, could be spotty. This new building, you can't have that. So we try to build in contingencies. Those are certainly, if they go unused, they're just budget line items. Also, the holistic approach of the FF&E, the kitchen equipment. So we just wanted to present this budget with the floor plan. There's certainly some other information here, but if there are any questions on any specific items of this.
I would just say, for the council, we want to be mindful of the dollars that are spent and how they're being spent and being most efficient with the funding as we move forward. It looks like y'all are doing that, right? One of the things that we can't control is inflation. If we could go back and build it in 21 or 20, we'd have got more for the dollar. I don't see in the near future that we're going to reverse those trends on the inflationary pressures that we've had for construction. So, as long as we're doing this best we can for our citizens on spending wise, I'm good with it. Again, nothing's in concrete, and we'll address it as it comes to us. This is just to give us a picture moving forward as to what we can expect.
And
Yes, sir.
Got several more slides.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Again, this station is so that we can maintain what our mission, the fire department's mission, to try to continue to provide, the highest quality of fire suppression, emergency, medical, and fire prevention, education, fire code enforcement, and disaster service to the citizens. That's why this station, as we're building it, we're looking not at what we just need now, but what it will look like 40 to 50 years down the road. I think that's being a good steward of taxpayers' money for us to look at that, because to come back and have to rebuild something is expensive. So our keys to our success is that, we establish that project budget and the timeline. We agree on the project matrix and define success, programming and designing processes and committees, which we have put together a committee within the fire department that's made up of each rank that's been doing these tours and being able to give their input, since the other one's going to be living in this building. Facility design that improves, firefighter mental health and physical health. That's some of the things that we're addressing with the airlock system, for instance. Right now, one of the leading causes of death for firefighters is cancer. So we have to do whatever we need to do to help alleviate that or lessen those effects. We need to maintain, the council, which you are our stakeholders, the engagement, and that's why we're coming to you in these phases. The infrastructure and site utilities coordination, environmental, which is, our air quality testing, equipment and vehicle requirements. So we'll be looking at that as far as what, the charging and the requirements for cleaning and whatnot. And then to be able to provide, a 3D rendering and graphs to present at each phase. So that's what we feel like are the keys to the success of this, to keep you all informed of how we're progressing with this. The committee that was put together, one of the things that they had goals, and it was, that we maintain our current ISO rating, and that's a requirement that we have this station so that we can continue to provide the service that we're providing now to all the citizens of Terrell. Just the station itself allows us, again, that we'll be able to bring more firefighters on, which makes us more self-reliant and less reliant on other agencies. We wanted spaces that were dynamic and flexible spaces. And then our long-term planning for durability and material lifespan. We're looking at a station that's going to last 40 to 50 years. In addressing what is actually our needs versus any wants, which, I haven't came to y'all with any wants. I hope one day to be able to do that. Right now, I've been addressing needs, and I'm still addressing needs. So one day, hopefully.
Anybody have any questions for the chief?
I've got a couple.
You got more? Let's get through them. That's a good idea. Let's get through them and make some notes. Go ahead.
I can speak a little bit further on schedule. I know we touched on that earlier. We are certainly trying to time this facility opening, with the next round of available funding for hiring. This just shows the incremental approach. We don't have the cart out in front of the horse yet. We're still in that pre-design, and we are perfectly on schedule, to kind of move forward to that next step. So any schedule questions?
Schedule.
That's,
Yeah, is there anything you can think of other than just weather that might delay something? Because I did have other questions with some of the other slides. Is there anything other than weather you could think that may delay it?
We'll build in weather days. So this construction timeline builds in the NOAA average plus, several days. So as a major, at this point in the project, no, everything I believe is working really well.
Okay, I have a few other questions. Can I ask those now, or we just need to ask a scheduling question?
No, yeah, any other question? Absolutely.
It's page 696, where it has the kind of site plan. All right, with this construction, when I look at, the agenda item right before this, with all the building in that area out there. Is there any other opportunities for expansion? When I think of this, I'm thinking about building up. If we need more firefighters in there instead of 18, if we needed 30, is that doable with the way you're constructing this? Or is it just, this is what we got and we can only go out?
I think some of the other opportunities for expansion, we're certainly not at the setback at Apache Trail. If we would add kind of apparatus bays on that left side of the plan, and if we needed to add firefighters, we would add that on the right, just trying to keep those separately. But this would absolutely allow for additional company expansion.
Okay. All right. And I don't even know if this is realistic. If you look at the next slide, 697. Is this telling me that when I look from 21 to 22, there was a 6.1% increase in the construction cost or building cost? Is that what that tells me? I want to make sure I'm reading this graph right.
Yes.
That's what that says?
Yes.
I wish it would have had more, I don't know how realistic it would have been to see a longer timeline, because we're looking, construction's not gonna start till what, October 24? If there's any delay, maybe 25. Is there any way, is it even realistic to kind of just guesstimate what this might look like? Or is that just pretty standard?
We have our line item on the next slide, the market risk inflation.
Okay.
At 1% a month for the next 8 months. So that's a conservative projection based on those previous last several years. Gary, if you want to talk about what you've seen inflation, or if you have a crystal ball.
No, I don't have a crystal ball, but, you know, our business is somewhat leveling out. We're not experiencing the long lead items that we couldn't get here a year ago. So while construction cost is going to continue to increase, just it has, we don't see anything in the near future that's going to impact that. But I mean, you don't know about world events. You don't know about all things that impact construction. So.
Okay. All right. Next question is on the next slide, page 698. When I look at the cost versus the unit, is that the square footage, the unit, 15,900 square feet?
Yes, ma'am.
And when I look at the summation, it looks like the projected total cost for this fire station to be 14.2 million. Is that about where we are?
That's total cost, yes.
Okay, and it does include that 1% increase?
It does include the
If we
1%
get behind
increase.
Or something else happens. Is it even realistic to even think that some of these costs could go down? That's just not real.
I'm currently beating some of these and current projects.
Okay.
I know Gary certainly does, so without promising, standing up here, absolutely, I can promise you the effort will be there.
Okay.
And these are the conservative projections at this point, and that is absolutely our goal.
Thank you so much.
So, quick question from me. We can go back to, I think it's page 5 here of this presentation. Or no, actually, the next page, that one. So again, pointing to that 2022 8%, if you look over the past 12 years there, or 20 years, 22 years, you can see it looks like we're literally choosing the worst possible time from an inflation standpoint to build. With costs, we just mentioned almost doubling of construction costs since 2021. I want nothing more than for our fire department to have a world-class fire station and to be successful in this build, but maybe this isn't the right time to build, because everything I'm seeing, when I look at all the financial reports coming out, they fully expect inflation to decrease by 3 to 6% over the next 2 years. So if we're looking at a potential inflation decrease, and right now we're at the highest possible point, you can see over these years, there's ups and downs, there's 1%, there's 4%, there's 1% again. Right now we're at a peak at 8%, and that's right when we're looking to build this station. It seems to me like maybe we might want to consider the fact that prices could dip down in a year or two, because if this year we're about to build a station for, what was the price again? 14 million that we could have built for maybe 6 or 7 million 2 years ago. That's hard for me to swallow. So
That would have been pre-COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's where I'm kind of I have a lot of hesitance about it.
One thing to really consider is our call volume is increasing no matter what. Sure. It's independent of inflation, so Right now, we have to get the resources that we need so that we can continue to provide the level of service that we're providing now. To me, waiting shouldn't be an option on this because those call volumes are going to continue to go up. You see the building that's going all around us, so people are continuing to come in, so.
Well, the fact is, the cost is gonna go up.
Yeah.
It may not as drastically as it has been the last couple of years, but it's never gonna retreat.
Well, I mean, looking at the building costs here, it appears that it has retreated in the past. It's gone up and down like a roller coaster.
That graph is a continual rise the last 10 years or better.
Yeah.
Well, I like to say that Terrell is going places, and it's going to grow fast. It is growing right now. I personally wish that we were making plans for Fire Station 4 and have Fire Station 3 already built. And I just know where we're going as a city. And we can't roll the dice and hope inflation is going to be a certain way. I mean, the time to act is now. And I'm glad we're talking about this. And I think it's a great time to and earlier would have been better, but no time is better than now to get it done.
We're not putting a shovel in the ground for a year.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there may be some change. And you know what? I don't fault Councilman Robinson for wanting and being mindful of the fact of the cost. I agree 100% with your assessment of it. What I want us to remember is what is moving us forward, as the chief has explained, is the need for it. If this was, we wanted to build a new fire station, but we don't need it yet, then I think you're spot on that we should delay it for a year or two and see what happens. But because this is need-driven rather than want-driven, then maybe we need to reassess. And one of the most difficult decisions that all of us are going to make is this expenditure right for this time? And so we'll keep that in mindful, and hopefully we see some reduction a little bit here and there, and that number softens a little bit. But I agree with everybody, and that's why we have the council that we do, is we discuss and consider, and everybody's input's important. So thank you all very much. There's more still.
Yeah,
but we
so,
need to keep
yeah, so Mayor, let me just say that if we could hop over to agenda item page 701, which is one more slide, one more, there you go. There's a lot of information here about what's actually going to be in the building, and so I want the guys to get through that. So if y'all pick it up from here and just maybe walk through as a group the next 6 or 7 slides.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. When we talked about this being Terrell-sized, this is sized for now, for an immediate need. While we are building a station that is dynamic and flexible for the future, I don't feel like this station is an overbuild saying we'll fill it later. So just the 3 pull-through double-stacked bays, the hot, warm, and cold zones for carcinogen air, the bifold doors helps in response time. Having a day room centrally located that's inviting and comfortable. Secure vestibule and watch room for visibility. The sleeping of 10 total, which is what Chief mentioned. A traditional station design that Terrell can be proud of. 3-shift battalion ambulance truck engine and support vehicles. So we have that. We could turn that, we've translated that into a square footage. Mobile clinic accommodations, and also lobby. So you'll see also, please stop me if you see anything here, but we're able to turn the wants and needs into actual square footage. And so that's where on the budget you saw the 15.9. You'll see an accounting for each square foot here. The public lobby appropriately sized. You'll see the images were taken from the stations that we toured. Some of these spaces are slightly smaller. Some of these spaces need to accommodate 2 sets of bunker gear. So if the firefighters go out, dirty their gear, they could actually change. A lot of other stations around here only had room for 1. So you'll see some of the rooms are very appropriately sized here. We have a public interaction. That room could be fire public interaction. That could be a spot for the Terrell Police Department to stop, pull in, write a report at 3 a.m. on that side of town. We thought at 200 square foot, that was a pretty responsible multi-use room. We have a briefing room, very similar size to what you see on the bottom right. Some other really nice things that we feel like having a watch room that has visibility. Visibility equals safety. So visibility of the public lobby and also visibility of the apparatus bays. So you will see, the next time we present, a lot of these rooms manifest. We have living quarters. These will be in between. So the main living spaces being the day room and the kitchen will be in between the sleeping areas and the bays. That gives for very quick response time. No spot on the station will be more than 65 feet from the apparatus bays, trying to maintain those. The airlock entries, multiple custodial room, laundry, pantries, kitchen, restrooms, and dorm rooms. What you see, what our goal for this day room is to maintain firefighter camaraderie. Work organization, council cohesion, anytime you spend time together, you build a trust and a working relationship. So trying to create a room and architecture that allows for that, the development of a relationship that you can rely on that person, to your left or right in a serious event would be the goal there. So that would be kind of the heartbeat of the station. Certainly looked for a fitness room. It's appropriate for 5 or 6 firefighters to work out in, part of the health. Individual dorm rooms. These are not massive college dorm rooms. This is the code minimum enough for someone to sleep unencumbered, to where if someone's phone goes off or they drop a dish, they're not going to be woken by that. So we see that as a small bed and just a spot for them to land their personal gear. An outdoor space that's really close, that's multifunctional. Just a canopy. You put a grill out there, and that can go a long way for also station camaraderie. Even outdoor training. So for physical fitness. This is kind of this is the heart. The day room's the heartbeat. This is the business end. This is where you're protecting your multi-million-dollar assets. This is where the rubber meets the road. Literally, design these things need to be designed for air movement, vehicle exhaust captures to make sure when you pull in there, it's not like your garage when you kind of smell fumes. We're going to make an invitation if you'd like to smell what that smells like. It's run your car in your garage. So we'll have nozzles that will capture exhaust from each one of these vehicles. We will have decontamination custodial rooms that will double as kind of quick shower rooms. And the modern gear, the extractors, the drying racks. And you see in the stations that we toured, their firefighters make a creative use of space. So we've certainly not overbuilt this. Firefighters are adaptive. The 15,900 is kind of spot on. You're still going to have creative use of this space. And so also the mechanical chases, the walls, things like that take square footage. So that got us to the 15,900. And so what we're asking you to align on today or provide additional guidance is we will design a station, for this square footage. Kind of moving forward.
I kind of wanted to touch base on the schedule because goodness, that programming is a lot, and we did provide you with the breakdown of the square footage. So obviously what we will do is share out this presentation with y'all so you can really look at the spacing that's being allocated for each one of those sections. The way we kind of laid out the next couple of months is that we'll start here with the what little feedback we have tonight, but we definitely encourage you to reach out and meet with Chief LeCroy so that he can, help explain and help get some of y'all's questions, and then he can report back to the committee as well as the architect and core. So what you should be expecting in the future, after y'all have all had time to meet with LeCroy, is that the next task order would come to you in January, and that would be permission to go into schematic design. And with the schematic design, we'll take all the programming, any of the questions or things that y'all definitely want addressed, and you'll actually start seeing that in a floor plan, and you'll start seeing where the bedding is, where all of the apparatus would be, the actual drive, and you'll actually get to see the first real design of the building. That will only take about a month, because we've already started. Some of that, you can see that in just the footprint that you've been given on the first couple of pages. And then in March, we would be ready based on an approved schematic design. We'll take that back and forth until everyone's happy with it. And then in March would be one of our last task orders, which would, once you agree to the schematic, we would then do 100% full design of the fire station, and then you would get your bidding, and you would actually get to see the final pricing as it comes through. And so that would be approximately a 6-month process. So you're looking at summertime, whenever you would have firm pricing for Fire Station 3.
Well, I really appreciate the process that we're going through, because I think it helps, going back to WRA's statement about you don't have a business that's telling you, oh, this is the great, beautiful building that we're going to build, without going through the assessment, the needs assessment of the needs assessment. And when I think about my 8 to 5 at a healthcare institution, a lot of the, most of the items that are listed, like the rooms, whether it's a sleeping or a kitchen area or everything that you need to have to protect the health of our firefighters. I think it's all basic needs. I would like a little bit more information about because I saw it as an alternate bid item, what a mezzanine how that would help a fire station for my education. But I'm appreciating the process, because it does help me see what those basic needs are and compare it to something that I'm used to seeing in my 8 to 5, that any facility may need. We are at this point because of the population that we have and the projection increase that we are also seeing, and I want to be supportive. At this time, I'm supportive, and I want to continue to be supportive to build this out, because it's a need and it's not a want. We may have additional wants in the future, and we'll cross that road when we get there. But I would appreciate some education brief education on how the mezzanine would support staff for the building.
That would be on the far end of the building. If you wanted to put a floor where you could store additional items, ladders, hose, it's a pretty low-cost way to get some more storage in the facility. And I would propose that could be an alternate bid item. That's we get a design, get a price, and that gives you on bid day saying, mezzanine, $400,000, we beat inflation, yeah, let's do it. You know, mezzanine for $1 million, absolutely not. You know, it's a kind of a flexible item if we do actually beat inflation.
We were just trying to stay with the basic needs. Stay away from the wall.
Yeah.
It's kind of a wall, but.
Sure, and so it's essentially for storage, is what I'm hearing.
It's storage. It's a low-hanging fruit value for it when you're seeing $590 for the total station square foot construction. It's probably about $20 extra a square foot just over cabin area. So it's one of those. It's not baked into the project, and it's something that's a standalone decision that can be made all the way out.
But it would serve a dual purpose.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It would be additional storage, absolutely.
I do have one more question that just came to mind, because we talked about EMS, and I really appreciated Councilman Home Thomas' a question about can you build up and allowed us to see that you can also build to the north, not just only to the south. So I'm wondering what additional items or space build out would be needed, is there anything else that would be needed to support EMS in the future that we would see for this fire station or the rebuild of a different fire station?
I could speak to our experience to where that's going to be a decision when that time comes. It's going to be a coverage area decision, to where if this station serves a coverage area but there's a need in another area, then that's going to probably necessitate that be, a station for, I'm speaking hypothetically. If the need is at that station, it could be met at this station. It's flexible enough, but I don't believe we would have a way to know that yet.
As far as the facility goes, remember that we're already doing the ALS first responders, so that's built into here for storage for our EMS supplies and drugs and whatnot. So actually, it'll only be putting a bay on where you can put an ambulance in, and then we're ready to roll with it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. My only comment would be, since we're looking at the beginning part of it, I know in the event of an emergency, we probably have the police station as a command center. One thought might be that we have a backup command center south of town, and maybe with that 200-foot room you've got, might be able to make sure that we have the resources needed for a second command. So just consider that. If it's a lot of money, that's a want we might look at later, but if it doesn't affect the cost, then maybe we might need to do that and consider that. All right, thank you. Good comments from everybody. Thank you all for your presentation. Our next item on the agenda is receive fire department monthly report.
No.
Am I wrong? Oh, you're right. I am. I'm trying to get us out of here. I'm sorry. So our next item is 7.2, discuss traffic and speed in residential areas. This is going to be presented by our Deputy Chief Arlie Sansom and our City Engineer Chris Snap. If we would get through the presentation and then we'll ask questions.
Okay, we have about 127 slides, so we'll go through this pretty quick.
You've got 10 minutes.
So no questions. But we're going to talk about traffic. We're going to team this up together. I'm going to talk about the engineering and the education side of it, and Artie's going to talk about the enforcement side. But basically, there's 3 E's approach to the traffic. And in engineering, what is traffic calming? The combination of mainly physical measures that reduce the negative effects of motor vehicle use, alter driver behavior, and improve conditions for non-motorized street users. What we're going to do is we're going to go through here and we're going to talk about several of the types of calming devices that are out there. This is not all of them. This is just to give you a kind of an understanding of some of the concepts that are out there as you look at as driving, what can slow some of the speeds down on some of the streets. Naturally, we didn't get into the classifications of the streets and how wide and how many lanes, so there's a lot of impact to that. But I won't go through there and read all of them, but you'll see several of them that are impacted. We'll talk about some of them specifically, and one that we're actually doing in a design on Temple Street into the Stallings addition. So one of the things that we do in the traffic in the design area is you do a traffic impact study. We mentioned that, and they can be done on a case-by-case basis, meaning maybe on an intersection, could be on a long section of road. The ones that we've done recently, that we've done off and on, is on a school area, on an intersection. And how do we impact? How can we get the flow of traffic? Every parent wants to show up 3 hours before the school time bell rings, and they sit there and park and close up businesses, parkways, driveways. One thing that I want to mention, stop signs and speed bumps are not a solution to calming speeds. You might think, well, they do make you slow down, but after a while, stop signs become just a blow-through. And you become complacent with that at times. Speed bumps are a hazard to emergency vehicles. I hope you're not in an ambulance and someone has to go and you're in the back and they're doing chest compressions. It'll help, but hopefully they're cycled just right. But you can see the concept. They're noisy. They do a lot of damage to vehicles. So that's really not the answer. some of the engineering designs that we can implement into the roads. We'll talk about this a little bit later when we talk about the RFQ for our roads that we have coming down. Here's two examples that we can implement within an existing road. Now, granted, it has to be dependent on the width of the road, but I just wanted to show you some things that are out there that we can do that basically cause you as a driver to either make note that you got to turn, you got to swerve, or you're looking for objects that come out in front of you, whether it be a kid or a soccer ball or anything like that. Anytime you can neck down, throttle down, put some objects that are called blockers that kind of grab your attention, that maybe you get narrowed down, just like when you're in your driveway, you slow down when you got close clearances. Here's one example that we're actually doing out there on on Temple Street. We've actually added a median, and we're going to be adding some landscape to that median to kind of make it feel like it's closed down so you just don't blaze through a median. So we'll have some trees and some shrubbery out there, so it'd be more of a presentation of what you're actually entering into a subdivision. Naturally, the mindset when you see that, you just commonly just slow down, you either look around, see the scenery, but it's kind of as a diversion. So there's one example. Here's another example that's out there that in my neighborhood that I live in, I kind of sometimes, you can see how fast you speed up. And you can play with it, but it is something real time. As you're driving through, you can see what your actual speed is and going, what I should be doing versus what reality is. Am I breaking the law, so to speak? Am I causing a hazard? So these are real time. They can get sophisticated even with cameras. And then they send a picture to Arlie, and here we go. This, as you know, technology is out there. And these examples here are just merely real time displaying your speed. Now, the last one, I'll turn it over to Arlie, is the enforcement side. So there you go.
So the concept of, thank you, sir. The concept of speeding, school zones, other reckless driving is not new. I started here in 1988, and I remember many assignments where I was told, hey, go sit on X street and keep a tally and give me a traffic study. That was really the only way we had the ability to do a traffic study at that point. But what we have to consider here is the perception versus the reality, okay? What I found in all of those gazillions that I did in my 20s and in my 30s in the lower ranks was we typically found that what we heard wasn't what we experienced. Now, you may say, well, sure, you're sitting there in a cop car. People are going to slow down because they see you. But in actuality, some of those, we did those with unmarked cars. So they did not necessarily know that we were there. We remember several studies where the statistics showed that we had less than 0.29% of people that were actually committing a violation of 5 miles an hour or over. So it's important that you look at the perception versus reality. So I tell stories. I like to be entertaining in that, and I like to make people think. And so I found that a lot of times a meme or a photograph will draw you in and help you focus on what I'm trying to get across. So look at the diagram on the left. The perception is there's a number on the ground. One guy sees a 9, one guy sees a 6. Who's right? Well, they both are, only from their perspective, only from the way they see it. If you look to the right, you see this guy's been stranded on a desert island waiting for somebody to save him. He's all alone, seeking someone for salvation, right? A guy's been floating out on a water raft thinking, if I could just find land, I'd be saved. So this is where you see the bittersweet meeting of perception and reality. So clearly, perception and reality have a very different meaning. The former occurs entirely in the mind, in which mental gymnastics can turn any belief into a reality. The other exists completely outside of the mind and can't be easily manipulated. So we have to ask ourselves as stewards of the city money and as leaders in the organization, are these complaints based on facts, actual data, or are they merely anecdotal accounts? Well, the good news is we have ways of determining that, but what we also know is that this general citizen is not capable or competent to give you an actual speed estimate. Once again, I like to talk in analogies and use diagrams to make my point. So if you'll see this video here, watch this video. We're going to play it through about 3 times. It's real quick. How fast do you think this vehicle is going? This is a train. Watch real closely. Watch the change. And watch the change. The exact same speed. Exact same speed. I don't know what that speed was. I couldn't find the one that I used in training when I was on the staff at Eastfield, but I've used analogies like this before to demonstrate that the regular citizen doesn't have the ability just to look at that and say, this guy was going 60 miles an hour on my residential street. As a matter of fact, experience tells me that even as a guy that wrote 300 tickets a month on a regular basis during my junior years in this agency, I couldn't get it within 2 or 3, 4 or 5. Greg could probably attest to that. In our training in law enforcement, they teach us that the visual observation is what you're seeing. It is confirmed by the tool of radar. So I think that's really important that we understand the difference between what people think is happening and what's really happening. And of course, the good news is that we have the ability to find out. So we have to ask ourselves, is there something going on in this neighborhood? Is there something that's lending itself to higher volume, lower volume? Is it because people are taking this route because there's no traffic on it, because they can speed themselves up and get to a location quicker, sooner? And some of those things may be created by us. We may have a special event that's occurring in this part of the city, forcing someone to the other. But the reality of this is we got to find out first, is this something that we really need to address or that we have the ability? And that's where the automated tools come in. Really quick, I'm going to give you a little history lesson on automated tools and how they work. My automated tool in 1988 was a pen and a notepad. Arlie, go sit out there on X Street and count the number of cars that come by, write down a speed at the end of your day, 4 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours, however long you were assigned, tally up the vehicles, divide that number by the number, and tell me what the average speed was, and tell me what the fastest guy was doing and what the slowest guy was doing, right? Well, as technology got better, we had other ways to do it. We moved to a traffic calming system. That was actually, traffic calm was termed by the company that invented the first one of these speed radar companies. That was just to show your speed. As Snap said, you know, there are people just like him that are going to go out there and try to set the record, but the goal is for you to see visually, hey, I'm going this fast and I really should be going this fast. And we saw some decreases in that. Somewhere about the mid-2000s, that's when we moved to the technology where it's all done with radar and we had the ability to collect data from that. It wasn't just that they were flashing a number and you could see it, but we had the ability to collect information and data. This is just an example of this. This is one of ours, and this is the equipment that we have. So this is a real-life report that you could see in regards to that. You can break that down by the day of the week, the time of the day, by the speed. So if you needed to know how many people were driving 0 to 10 in this 30-mile-an-hour zone, you'd have the ability to do that. And you can see we can track numbers of vehicles, 27,000 vehicles in this particular study. This was a busier street, so a lot of traffic. But the point being is that we have the tools, we have the ability to determine whether this is a real problem or something that somebody just thinks is a problem, and we need to put those tools to use before we start deploying resources. Effectiveness has shown that the percentage of vehicles exceeding the speed limit by more than 10 miles an hour decreased by 64% at camera sites, important word, by 39% at spillover sites, and by 43% at unenforced comparison sites. Now, that statement refers to a process that's illegal in Texas. You can't use cameras to issue citations. You can use it for surveillance and you can use it to see what's going on, but you can't use that as a form of issuing a violation against somebody. So basically, we need to use the tools we have. We need to decide if we really have a problem that needs to be addressed, or is it something that can be addressed, and that leaves us with 3 things. Education. You're going to have to teach them, show them, guide them, let them know these are the areas where we need to be conscious of our speed, and we can do that with some of the suggestions that Chris made tonight. Documenting and determining whether there's really a problem that needs to be addressed, and then finally, of course, enforcement. Well, I'll tell you, I've been doing this for 36 years, and if you can figure out a way to correct human behavior, let me know, because I'd love to have the secret, I'd love to bottle it, and I'd love to sell it, because that's what we deal with on a regular basis every day, is how do we correct and change human behavior. So If it comes to the point that we do have to use our resources, what do we have at our disposal? Well, right now, we have 2 members of a part-time traffic unit. They have multiple duties, including drones, court bailiffs, special security, FLID, and FSRA, which is fail to leave identification at the scene of an accident, fail to stop and render aid at the scene of an accident, which is a felony, and other patrol responsibilities. They do have unmarked units, so we'll be a little incognito, so we could get the ability to not be seen until we've made a few stops and made people aware that we're enforcing in a higher area. But understand, it requires resources. You've got to have resources if you're going to have specialized deployment units. I'll tell you right now, give me 5 new cops and I'll create a traffic unit. We'll have motorcycles, we'll have unmarked cars, we'll have 5 guys who's nothing in the world but their job is to go out and enforce traffic violations, look for safety issues in specific areas, and those kind of things. But right now, I don't have that. Every time we get to the right level, we have to steal from the patrol division to expand another division. As you know, we expanded narcotics. We've expanded several of the other areas in the department, and those always come from patrol. So if we're going to make that a priority, if we're going to do that, we have to be conscious of the staffing cost. We have to be conscious of the equipment cost, and you have to make that a priority. Y'all have to decide where that money and where those resources are going to need to be issued so that we can move forward with that. So the next steps for us, the cameras that you've seen on the screen, we ordered a brand new one. I'm expecting it mid to late January. They didn't give me a ship date, but that was one of the items that y'all already approved at our request, so thank you for that. That's on the way. As soon as we get it, we'll deploy it, and we'll rotate it through problem areas. Those come from y'all. I don't know where the problem areas are. I have a sneaking suspicion that it'll be the same 10 or 12 streets that I've dealt with many times in my career. But if you have a particular street that has got some kind of issue, we have devices that we can do that. We have 2 of the devices that hang on the wall, a pole, a tree, something like that we can use that'll get us the traffic static statistics. So we have those now. This one comes with a package including. So this will be a multi-purpose. It'll also show you the speed, what you're supposed to be doing, what the actual speed is, but it'll also be collecting the data, and you'd have a report similar to what I demonstrated earlier. The traffic data collection at key locations can begin as early as 2024 when we receive that. Local Streets Engineering contract will include traffic calming professional review of a variety of strategies and on city streets. Recommendations from Local Streets Engineering contract will be reported back to the council over the course of the project. So there you go. I'm open to discussion if you have any, but that's basically what we need to make the determination of the tools that we have at our disposal to use for this project.
All right, thank you, Arlie, for being here. This item was asked to be put on the agenda. So if you have any questions, my concern would be Poetry Roller 986. You can hear them drag racing there from time to time. I'd be lying if I said it was all the time, but it is on the weekends usually frequent, and usually when school's not in, right? So we kind of got ideas, probably high school kids that are running up and down there. I'd be curious to know if who that is, and if we could catch them, that'd be great. But for those that wanted this agenda on the item, please, here's your time to speak.
Arlie, I have I've shared with
He's
staff.
low.
I've shared with staff about 18 wheelers, and we worked with for the Temple Street for adding the median. And when we look at District 3 as an example, we have 20 crossing through District 3. We have 34 crossing through District 3, and we have 80 crossing through District 3. So that means that not only do we get vehicles, and then we also have industrial distribution facilities in District 3. So sometimes if they're coming off of Highway 80, because of the way that 34 has the bridge, then they're cutting through corners of a neighborhood. We just had a diesel spill. I'm not sure if they were turning, trying to get onto 34, or they were already on 34 and then got hit. But that's an example of those 18-wheelers being in or near a residential area, and that's always a concern. Rose Hill Road as well, I've shared, those 18-wheelers will come down Rose Hill Road when there's traffic backed up on Highway 80 and they try to come down Lincoln Street. And I'm not sure if they've tried to come down the University, but I know they have come down Lincoln Street. So I would ask for council support, because I'm sure it's not just happening in my district, because we have plenty of FM highway roads throughout District 3, but to put additional funding into the budget to make sure that we do have funds available to pay for these tools like medians or for lack of a better word, roundabouts or traffic circles in these areas where 18-wheelers are coming through, are attempting to come through or coming through our neighborhoods or near neighborhoods. And then, of course, like the traffic, the regular traffic concerns that we may have with standard vehicles.
Can I just help address that? One of the reasons that this came in really conveniently, that we had a council request to have it on the agenda, and again, some of my council members have great timing. It was very convenient to have this request to have it on the agenda come in on the same day that Chris Snap, in the very next agenda item, is going to talk about the local streets engineering contract. So when you say, hey, can we have a professional look at these issues and make recommendations about if we're not on the enforcement side, right? So Arlie's got enforcement. He gave you a whole description about what that part of it is. On the Chris Snap side, related to the engineering side of it, it's a nice thing to say, well, we could look maybe at traffic calming in the future. I don't want to say that to you. Whenever you hear Chris's presentation next, the idea is that the engineering firm that we hire to do our local street evaluation and to give us recommendations on which red streets to rebuild, right? And where to spend our pay-as-you-go money in summer 24 and summer 25. That same streets consultant can have a traffic calming expert. And that engineering contract can include some evaluation of some, I guess I'll call it hotspots. By no means are we gonna have the money to analyze everything else, every single street in the city, right? But we need to gather council input. We need to find out what some of the top priorities are. Arlie clearly knows some, Chris clearly knows some, I clearly know some, but yeah, we want your input. So over the next little while, and what you'll hear in the next agenda item is, while Chris is negotiating his contract with the winner of the RFP process, it'd be great if I started to get a list from council members of, could you just look at these two, these three, these six, this one, whatever it might be, start feeding us that information, and we'll be able to make sure that we get it prioritized in there. You might say, hey, look at Baker Street. District 5 might say, hey, take a look at Lovers, and the other districts might have their own ideas about, hey, take a look at Rose Hill, or take a look at this, that. We'll gather that information. We'll make sure that's slotted with Chris to take a look at, and anything that just needs data, well, gosh, you just heard from Arlie right here. We've got data collection techniques on having a speed profile and a traffic volume profile of the roadway. We've got 3 different pieces of equipment. Come January, we'll have 3 different pieces of equipment to do that. I think we can gather a lot of information pretty quickly and arm our traffic calming engineer with data from the police department so that those guys can come back and make some good recommendations. So I think it's going to come together very nicely for us, but, a starting point is, what's on the hot list that we're hearing from council input. So just remember, I'm not saying let's talk about traffic calming. We have an engineering firm in the next agenda item that's going to be able to sink their teeth into this.
I'm always concerned about the streets near our schools and our parks. I definitely will say just Town North is a concern. It's a major thoroughfare. It's a couple of schools in the area, so I definitely would like to see that. I'm just kind of surprised. We don't already have some type of speed radar sign in this city?
We did. It became unoperational about a year and a half ago. We tried to get it worked on, and it's just unserviceable. So that was one of the requests I made in the budget for this year, and it was approved. And so we've got it ordered. I think I placed the order mid-November, and they had some backup. So he's telling me somewhere around January.
I would have liked to have heard that a little earlier, if that was a year and a half ago, but life happens, people get busy, priorities change, but I'm just surprised the way we're growing and a city of our size and magnitude that we don't have an operating one already, but it's old business. We have to try to correct it, and I think we've worked to do that. This new speed radar sign, how long does it take to gather the data?
You can set it for any period, as little as an hour or as much as 3 weeks.
What's recommended? What's the standard recommendation?
My recommendation is you wouldn't get enough data to be consistent to make a recommendation unless you did it a week.
Okay.
Typically, when we move these around, we try to leave them there at least 7 days through the weekend, because that kind of gives you an idea of, hey, is this weekend traffic or is this daily traffic?
Okay. Is that the standard, about 7 days, or is that just your preference?
That's just my preference. I don't know. I'm sure there is a standard, but I didn't research that.
Okay, I might be asking about that if you could get that information to me.
Okay.
And it'll take how long to compile the data after we do this for whatever determined time?
It's a simple download. Once it's collected, you go to that aspect of the app and it downloads the information, and you can put it in any kind of format that you need. That was just two of the most clear examples that I had that I demonstrated today.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks for the presentation. So this sort of grew out of, initially it was Town North. I got a lot of, really every week, a lot of calls, messages about Town North Drive, about kids walking down that area to go to high school, and then cars speeding by, seeing a lot of near misses, kids almost hit, things like that. So I think that those kinds of situations where we're in and around our schools, like Councilwoman Holmes Thomas said, are deeply important. Things like primary walking areas like 9th Street, like Colquitt, like Griffith Avenue. Griffith, for example, since the remodel of their street, since it was redone, many residents tell me that it's like a highway now. Including 18-wheelers coming down through that shouldn't come through, big trucks, lots of fast traffic. And I've seen myself just kind of walking my kid around that area. It's it's super fast traffic, and Johnson Street as well, these kind of main thoroughfares in that area. But I think that I would love to see us have a, sort of a timeline, a plan of action for, how quickly we can kind of get a traffic study done, understand, what the problem areas really are, and maybe we can sort of recommend, 3 to 5 streets per district to kind of say, these are our focal points, and that could kind of be our, where we kind of prioritize which streets get evaluated most quickly,
These things can be set up in 30, 45 minutes.
Okay.
It does take time to get them set up. There is a battery life on them. Most of them are run off solar. We do have some battery pack replacements, but, typically you'd have to swap the batteries out at least once during that seven-day period, but they're pretty simple to take up and take down. You just have to have a good location to mount it.
So I guess my question to the council is, if you've had conversations with your constituents about a specific location at a specific time, it's not unreasonable for us as elected officials to go to our department heads or police department and say, hey, you know what, we're not trying to tell you how to run the department, but so that they can go back to their constituents and say, hey, you addressed a problem with me. I take what you said seriously. If we were to put a police officer once, just so that they can see it and know that the city's moving forward with it and understands the problem, isn't unreasonable. We can't have them there 24/7, right? But if you have a specific area at a specific time, then I think you'd visit with Mike and say, hey, is it possible, just you pick the day, or if it happens on Friday, or if it happens on Thursday, to have just a vehicle go by, or be mindful of the fact, and kind of monitor it. Mm-hmm. That way that they can go back to their constituents and say, hey, you approached me, the police department was proactive on it, and we've got a long-term solution, which is gonna be the speed capturing data. But for the short term, we'll try to have a police officer kind of monitor.
Yeah,
That's not unreasonable.
I would just say, since this crosses between Chris and Arlie, just shoot me an email and tell me locations you're of concern, and I'll get it farmed out to the right guys, and we'll just go from there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Discuss resolution, no, we are at discuss award for professional services for evaluating and design of the Terrell City of Terrell roads. Chris Knapp.
Okay, council and mayor, as you recall, a month and a half ago, we awarded the $27 million for that. We sent out to go find engineering for the roads that we had just previously discussed. So what I'm going to bring for you tonight is on our RFQ that we sent out for engineering services. As you recall, we don't go out for pricing, we don't bid out engineering. It's against the state law to do that. But we went out for an RFQ for qualifications for engineering, and we received, if you'll turn to page 746, I believe, and we'll talk about that page here in a second, but I want to go ahead and kind of get you to the answer here. We had 4 engineering firms that returned engineering qualifications from our RFQ. Kimberly Horn, KSA Engineering, McManus Johnson, and SPI that are here locally. But those are the 4 engineering firms. You see the E1 through E5. We had 5 people in the staff that independently made evaluations. And as you see the scoring at the bottom. So the winner of this, if you want to look at it from a price time, McManus Johnson was the one that is being recommended as the engineering firm to do our engineering on our roads. So that is what we're coming to you as a recommendation. So we'll go back to that first page, if you will, and we'll talk about and walk through what our goals are and the philosophy and go from there. So, next page. Okay, so the goal here is to select one firm to provide the engineering design through their series of task orders. So what I'm bringing to you for tonight is just recommendation on the engineering. This is a very big task. So I'm not looking here to say we're going to go and we're going to select one engineering firm to go from point A to point Z of all this. So we'll do it on individual task orders and kind of break this up. But we'll go from there and we'll perform an overall strategy based off the 22 and the 23 street assessment. 23 assessment is actually fixing to be underway, and we won't be anticipating the results for a couple months from now. But we're going to proceed on with the 22 street assessment and subtract out what Glenn has already done in the 23, so we can go ahead and get started. We already know some of the major areas that are out there, so I want to go ahead and start looking at doing the engineering for that. So when we look at the funding categories of how we will proceed on this, as you know, the local streets will come from the 2023C loan, which is the $27 million. And then as we progress on and time rolls on, you see as we're getting into the summer of '24, we can use some of the funds out of the pay-as-you-go fund. And then as the engineering and the construction goes on, first quarter of '25 might be our first area where we issue debt for roads. And then summer of 2025, we can recoup and go back into the pay-as-you-go. So that kind of gives you a flow of some of the funding side of this as we move forward. Some of the design components, we've already touched on this. I won't go into it all. But this engineering firm, we're going to evaluate and stress. We're not going to go out and say, okay, everything's got to be a foot or 2 foot of concrete and sidewalks, and or an armored truck could run over it. We're going to have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, what the classification of the road is, how much the traffic is. I'm looking at buying a traffic counter to help with some of these things. It's called a tube system. You see them on the roads, the highway department, and you can count traffic. But we'll do it on the classification, and where if a road has 200 cars a day versus a street that has 5,000, we might change and alter the design. So I'm not going to be coming to you with one size fits all type of street. My goal here is to, as your direction is to maximize that dollar. So in some cases, we'll have to look at the utilities. Some cases, we're going to have to look at the sidewalks. We'll look at the, whatever the street may present itself, we'll have to evaluate it from that standpoint. So the next steps My recommendation here is to solicit, and I can work with a contract with McManus Johnson to do the engineering for the roads in this kind of step process. And we'd be doing it on an individual task order type of arrangement. So you'll know, and I can come to you and say, it's going to be this, not to exceed, and here's the scope of work. So you'll know exactly what we're looking at, what their scope of work is, and what the price is. And so it's not an ambiguous, I'm just out there designing roads. So the next step is to help develop that, bring structure to that, and some scoping and pricing. So we bring that back to the council for your evaluation approval. So
Just for clarity for council, McManus and Johnson is the recommended firm. Negotiations will start between Chris and McManus and Johnson. Council will recognize the name McManus and Johnson because that's the company that did Temple Street, and they've also done Metro Drive, and they're under contract with us now on the reconstruction of Apache Trail. So when we say McManus and Johnson, that's the reason you've heard that name before.
So I bring it to you for a motion consideration for that.
This is a discussion item.
Oh, yeah.
So this will come back to us at our next council meeting?
It is a discuss and consider.
Is it? I
Yeah.
don't see it.
It's a discuss only.
Is it discuss only?
Yeah, yeah.
Discuss and consider.
I'm sorry, I was looking at, it does say discuss and consider, 7.
I have discuss and consider.
It's on mine.
So on the agenda?
Yes, sir.
Well, we don't have a contract with McManus and Johnson, and the idea is that we're updating you today so that we can come back in the future with a contract from McManus and Johnson. So I don't have an item for your consideration because I don't have a contract today, but we will move forward.
Let's look at it.
Right, yeah, we got a little ambitious
No
there, that's
issue.
all
Hey,
right.
there's no problems here.
Yep.
We're good.
Yep.
But we could have if we'd have had a contract. We
Right,
would've-
yeah.
go.
And the contract will take a while, so it's not as if it's going to be ready on the 12th. I would be looking more for like the 9th or the 16th of January, yeah. So you'll see a contract as soon as Chris can get it ready for you.
All right, well,
Yes, I just want to clarify, when I look at this, basically you have the evaluation criteria, and then these 4 companies, you looked at their responses and they were graded based on that, and that's how we chose the,
Yes.
that's how you recommended.
So each individual, employee 1 through employee 5, we independently came up with our rating, and then we sat down in a meeting together and threw it back and forth and come up with a collective, and that kind of gets both sides of the coin. How did you think independently, and what did you bring to the table in evaluation? Because some of the evaluations that I used were really not something valid we could approach. So we kind of levelized it and made some consensus from that, and that's how that comes about. So it's a team effort of evaluating. It's not just one individual going, this is who I like or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Chris. Next item on the agenda is a discussion item as well. Discuss resolution number 2123, interlocal cooperation agreement with Kaufman County ETJ Authority. This is going to be handled again by Mr. Snap.
So what this is an interlocal cooperation agreement between the city of Terrell and Kaufman County about establishing what rules and who's responsible for what area. And the main thing that's changed out of this is our city limits and our ETJ. So we reassess, and that's identifying that new broader area that we're going to take care of this responsibility and you take this responsibility. So there's some joint effort as to, we know, I work closely with Monique Hunter there at Kaufman County, and we know what roles each of us play, and this is what this is involving.
So what kind of things were put in place so that someone doesn't slip between the gap in between the city of Terrell and the Kaufman County? Are there some checks and balances that we have? In other words, is the city of Terrell going to determine that, or is the county going to determine that? Or
Well, when the individual submits a permit application or a building permit of some sort, it starts getting checked by going off the address.
Okay.
And the address is really what triggers, is it your responsibility or my responsibility? And then it starts, the decision tree starts going that way, but it's based off the address and then the application. So that starts doing the checks and balances.
All right. Anybody have any questions on this item? And this resolution will come to us next Tuesday, The following meeting?
Yes,
sir.
Next meeting? Okay. All right, thank you, Chris. Next item is a business item. It is discuss and consider Resolution 2101.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight, resolution number 2101, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, approving the purchase of 6.5 acres of land being part of the William Peters Survey, tracks 35.02 and 35.04, property IDs 187223 and 51233, City of Kaufman, Texas, property by the Kaufman Central Appraisal District pursuant to the purchase and sale agreement between Kaufman Central Appraisal District and the Kaufman Independent School District, and the construction of and related financing of a building pursuant to a lease purchase agreement as required by Texas Tax Code, Section 6.051B. Finding such action is taken within the time required by the Texas Tax Code, Section 6.051B, ordering a copy of this resolution be provided to the chief appraiser and providing an effective date.
Can the mayor have a postpone on this item, please? Someone make that motion. Would someone make that motion, please?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to postpone.
Thank you. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, District 4, and a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to postpone item, or resolution number 2101. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous vote of the president. Next item on the agenda is receive fire department monthly report and also the Star Transit ridership report. Those are informations only. If you have any questions, please reach out to those department heads. Our next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. This can be taken, there's two items, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And
It
so
can be considered
if-
together.
Yeah, if nobody has any concerns on either one, we'll do those together. All right, so we'll do those together, 10.1 and 10.2. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, and a second from Phil Robinson, District 5, to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous consent. President, our next item on the agenda is adjourn into executive session in accordance with Section 551 of the Texas Government Code to discuss the following. Section 551.072, deliberations regarding real property. Section 551.087, deliberations regarding economic development negotiations. We're going to, and Section 551.074, personnel matters. We are now in executive session. So we'll go back to the Tommy Spencer room.